Welcome to the Cabin Culture Podcast, where we spend a little more time diving deeper into all the fun parts of cabin culture. I like to think of this as both the material and imagined expressions of how cabin lovers, dwellers, builders, and designers wish to live a more simple and authentic life. Today, we're welcoming Lynn from Fresh Coast Cabins, whose journey from digital marketing executive to cabin entrepreneur offers a refreshing perspective on placemaking in the wilderness of Michigan's Keweenaw Peninsula. From renovating a single rustic cabin to developing a collection of lakeside retreats, a public sauna, and now even a bar and event space, Lynn shares how her passion for creating meaningful experiences has evolved into a thriving ecosystem of hospitality ventures. We'll explore her philosophy that cabin culture is about connecting guests to the unique beauty and heritage of Lake Superior, including the area's deep Finnish roots and mining history. Whether you're curious about managing guest expectations in remote locations, navigating the balance between rustic charm and modern comforts, or interested in leveraging digital marketing to build direct bookings, this conversation offers both practical wisdom and a thoughtful perspective on intentional growth. We'll dive into everything from the ritual of seasonality along Lake Superior shores to the challenges of operating in a place where the nearest big box store is 3 hours away, and why sometimes the most memorable experiences come from embracing the imperfections rather than hiding them. Let's do it. Hi there.
Hello. Hi, Janice. How are you?
I love your background.
Thank you. This is called the Lake Superior of our podcast today.
Okay, so if you're not watching this on YouTube, I feel like it might be worth checking it out on YouTube because I am loving that I can see your property in the background of your photo. And I can imagine we might use this as like an orientation point along the
Absolutely.
way because we're
Yeah.
going to talk about the cabins and the sauna. But first, before we dive in, you have kind of a spread of things that you've created on Lake Superior. Can you start by explaining the Venn diagram to us of what you've created, how they overlap, and where they're different?
I can. Yes. Cabin was really, I actually call True North Cabin is our gateway cabin. And that was the one that we found in 2018. It was a fabulous structure, but had just been left since about 1970s and was done beautifully then. But True North Cabin was really our gateway drug to the cabin world and also to hosting, to learning about what this crazy, we had some experience in renovation, but never quite this opportunity to have this beautiful place that we really wanted to lean into and make our own. And so that project really started our cabin fever, if you will, to make a terrible punny. And then a few years later, we found Fresh Coast. And so at the time, it was Eagle Lodge and Lakeside Cabins, a couple miles up the road. And for all intents and purposes, it was pretty rundown and needed a lot of work. And so that began currently a 5-year focus on that property. And what that's really shown us is that we love this so much that we wanted to keep going and continue to build experiences, not just for the people that were coming to our area, which was kind of a key differentiator in our next like Venn diagram of the world, but that we really wanted to have kick-ass places for locals too. And we were loved sharing the Keweenaw with visitors and showing them, introducing them to the culture of sauna. We have a strong Finnish tie in our family, and my husband grew up taking saunas. And so putting one on the property seemed like just a natural choice. And we took so much pride in being able to share that with people and then seeing their reaction to it that we expanded our sauna location down about an hour south into Hancock, which is kind of at the very base of the Keweenaw Peninsula.
So you have several locations for the sauna.
We do 2 locations for the
Okay.
sauna, and that's actually the reason my husband isn't here today is because we're going through our final inspection on the other part of that property. So part of the sauna property now in Hancock has more of a location to it, and that is going to be an event and a bar lounge space right on the water in the Keweenaw Peninsula. So it has grown from where we never would have expected this journey to take us to
Mhm.
amazing things that have changed our lives, from people that we've met to ideas that we've been able to explore. And cabin culture was really a gateway for us to experience a lot of different things in life. And sorry, that was a lot in terms of a Venn diagram, but there's a network happening that's really fun in our ecosystem, and we love being able to share it with them.
And you're not alone. I feel like most folks, I love the way you described it as a gateway. Most folks start with one and then it grows to more. So if you were to think about like what the center of that Venn diagram is, so essentially like what is, and I run multiple businesses. I think a lot of people listening might, and I struggle all the time with like, what is the heart of my Venn diagram? If I were to bring them all together, what is the thing that really makes them all similar for you?
Yeah, creating amazing experiences. So at the heart, like every design of a space that we build, whether it's inside the sauna or it's how you walk from a check-in space to opening the door and feeling the heat hit you, every little moment that we get to build into someone's journey is the Venn diagram of what we do. And now with our new space, I mean, totally new concept for us, right? We're going to be bar owners, which sounds so unsexy, but we wanted to create this really cool area for us to be able to hang out with our friends, for people to be able to come down and
Yeah.
enjoy a drink in one of our favorite spots in the world. And being able to craft every moment from the second someone walks through the door of any project we're working on has been the real driver of our Venn diagram.
It's interesting because I've asked, I mean, 2 years worth of people now once a week to explain what cabin culture means to them. So I'm always a little bit amazed at this point when someone says something that I haven't heard before. You described it, you said cabin culture is about placemaking. I immediately resonated with this when I read it, but I wasn't entirely sure what you meant. So explain to folks listening, like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, in our part of the Keweenaw, in Michigan's toppest, tippy top north of the world, we feel like we're in our own world, right? And people don't travel through here. You don't go on your way to, from Lower Michigan to Chicago. You don't travel here unintentionally. You have to drive here, and you're pretty much here because our peninsula goes. We end at the top of Lake Superior, and the next option is a ferry to Isle Royale, which is also a fabulous experience, or Canada. And so when we think about how proud we are of this place that we love and we want to share and make sure that people also want to respectfully love and share it with us, we find such a sense of pride in this location. And so that translated perfectly into what we wanted to do when you come and experience a cabin on our property. We want you to walk in, we want you to know you're in a rustic setting, right? We have mice and we have snakes and we have bears, and we don't charge extra for sightings, is what I always tell people. But when you come in, we really, and I've really wanted to make you feel like you belong here, and that there's a sense of like, okay, I understand a little bit more about this culture, or I understand these trails and I can connect in a different way to this part of the world that I never would have been able to before. And that started with cabins for us. And, as we've been discussing, has quickly escalated to different types of experiences, similar to the heritage of our Finnish history, being able to leverage our area's deep rooted connections to Finns. And that really started from the mining times in the 1800s. Our area was, people went over to Finland and said, hey, there's this great place. There's tons of work. There's tons of land. You can really make a go of it here. And so hundreds of thousands of Finnish immigrants came to our area and worked in the mines, which was hard, dirty work. And we glorify it a little bit these days. But
Mhm.
I think it's really important to share there was hardship there, and there was a history, and there was so many wonderful things that cultural tie brought to our area in terms of the people that are here, the cultural
Mhm.
experiences that we have, the huge mines that you see when you drive around the peninsula, and kind of like what was that like when that was working. And
Yeah.
so I think that all ties into placemaking. It's, we
Yeah.
have been a lot of places, we've lived a lot of places, and when we think about the parts that make this area unique, we couldn't imagine, being able to go anywhere else and have these same really interesting ties that nobody else has in the world. And so
Yeah.
showcasing that and in a way that feels respectful, but also it gives people access to it has been our goal.
This is what I love about cabin culture because I feel like there's this similarity in feeling no matter where you go to a cabin, right? And we can like dig into what that feeling is. But there's also the uniqueness of that place. And if you go, we've talked about this before, but if you go to the mountains of North Carolina, you expect to see certain things in cabins. I have never been to Lake Superior. So tell us, like, what do people expect from cabin culture in that location? You can get super specific to like your town or a little bit broader to the region.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you meet Lake Superior, it's can be a visceral reaction for people. I mean, think about it. You're driving on some of the windiest roads. When they crafted and carved the roads out of, you can't see it on the picture behind me, but when they crafted these roads, they built them for everyone to be able to take picnics and have a picnic basket and be able to go to a roadside park and enjoy enjoy the beauty of Lake Superior. And when people come now, it's so amazing to me because the second they get out of their cars, they don't even look at the cabin. There's no cabin in their brain. They stumble right to that lake and just take in the beauty because everyone's like, "How is this a lake? It's actually an
Yeah.
ocean. You can't see across it. It doesn't smell like oceans sometimes smell."
Yeah.
And it just it encapsulates so many fierce things. If the wind is picked up, like the waves are crushing, and it's amazing. And Lake Superior will move landscaping for us every so often. I mean, she is a beast, and that really started our love of placemaking. And cabins, I think, became a really great extension of how do I experience this wonderful part of the world more. And that's really what led us to find True North at the end of the day was, hey, we really wanted this place a little bit higher up in the peninsula where we could experience all the wonderful things. And when we saw the lake, we were like, wow, this is it. This is
Yes.
incredible. And I love when people take the drivey road and they get out and they're like a little bit car sick and they're like, okay, I've made it. This is awesome. And then it's taking that and instead extending it into the cabin, right? How do our views impact how people
Yeah.
feel when they get to the property, and making sure all of those touches support the amazing lake that you reside next to for a few days.
Yeah. Do you think that being in such a scenic location removes a little bit of the pressure of what you have to do in the cabins to make people stay exceptional?
Super good question. I do think so, but I don't take that for granted, I would say. We have a few spaces that we've poured blood, heart, tears that we've been working slowly. The Fresh Coast Cabins property has about 10 spaces on it. And so we've been working one by one to try to renovate them and bring them to a standard that we would love to find and with somewhat modern appliances, but there's still rustic places and spaces on our space.
Yeah.
And I kind of like being able to offer that juxtaposition. I mean, we have a high end suite with a huge bathtub and a picturesque, set of windows that you can lay in
Yeah.
bed and watch the northern lights. And then we also have a very cozy, comfortable, small efficiency cabin with a kitchenette that allows, someone that just wants to stay for a shorter amount of time and experience Lake Superior for a small window. I love being able to have that variety. And I think the lake gives that. And in terms of pressure, I never take the pressure off in the experience we want to create. But I do think we probably have that advantage in that we haven't had to remodel every space to the
Right.
nines and still be able to attract people because of the beauty of Lake Superior.
It feels like this is the origins of cabin culture, maybe. I'm not the expert on this, but like getting us to beautiful spaces so we could explore them. And the cabin could then be very simple because you were spending most of your time outside in nature and just going back there at night to be together, warm up, eat food, etc. But it's taken on this new element, especially in the last 5 years, maybe, where it's actually becoming less about the outdoors, it feels like, and more about the inside of the cabin, the modern design, the high end amenities, the cool hammocks, whatever it might be, which I don't think is bad, but it is definitely a shift from what I'm seeing behind you is like the cabin is serving a function to get you to this beautiful space.
I think you've nailed it on that. I mean, we came to cabin porn in the, 2010s the same way that everybody else
Same.
did. And it was that idea of I am in this largely woody, sometimes really dusty, sometimes thrifted,
Yeah.
experience that
Yes.
just feels so important to be able to give you access to a place that you would otherwise not be able to explore. Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
wholeheartedly. It's an interesting shift. And I mean, with short-term rentals and the opportunity to have a place in a space that you otherwise wouldn't, and the ability to make money from that and show people a great experience is a wonderful thing. But yeah, how much of the higher end luxury amenity do we want in the woods when that's also for us it's also a little impractical, right? We're so
Yeah.
far away. Our closest Target is 3 hours away. Our closest large hardware store is 3 hours away. So when you think about the time and energy that it takes to essentially transform a cabin, it is not for the faint of heart. And there's also a
Yeah.
huge number of people in I think in our audience that appreciate that. They know
Yes.
that our log cabin and we try not to spread rumors, but we have some hunches that our log cabin on the property, actually this one that you can see right here, is one of the oldest cabins that's been built on that stretch of land between Eagle Harbor
Wow.
and Copper Harbor, which is about
Yeah.
it's about a 15-mile stretch. And there's
Yeah.
not a lot of other places that could hold a candle. We think this cabin, is around 100 years old. And
Yeah.
it's got charm that we're never gonna take out, in the sense of
Yeah.
huge log wood, and we're not going to go in and bring in a bunch of drywall and try to upgrade everything. We want it to be comfortable, but we still want to keep some of that creaky feel. And I think
Yes.
our guests appreciate that, which I
Yeah.
love as well. I don't feel some of that pressure to transform everything, even though we've made some pretty crazy transformation.
Yeah. So this is taking me to something I wanted to talk about with you because you mentioned this in your pre-interview form. You said you would really like to talk about the art of hospitality in remote spaces. And you just described how remote you are. And I think some of us say, like, oh, I'm a remote. It's like 20 minutes to the hardware store. That literally feels remote for me when I'm in Boone. And you're like, oh, it's 3 hours. That is very different. Can you talk about and you sort of touched on the history there, but you mentioned the intangible magic that makes a cabin more than just a rental. Like, what is it that you're providing to folks? And I think this gets complicated in like an increasingly crowded Airbnb market where the majority of rentals are not like this, right? So how do you make people aware of that? How do you prepare them for what to expect and what makes your spaces different?
Yeah, a really good question. And one small edit: while Lowe's and our big box hardware stores are 3 hours away, we do have closer hardware stores. Probably
Okay,
a
good.
35-minute drive will get us to a place where we can hopefully get a toilet fixed in a quick moment.
Yeah, great.
But yes, we really try hard in our marketing to help share and educate people around both the rustic nature of where we are as well as what we offer. So I think one of the things that we put on our website very clearly is we have, rustic spaces, but with the amenities of a boutique hotel. So we try again to make you feel like you're leaning into local culture, provide a gift basket with coffee from Keweenaw coffee roasters and local goodies and delights that just kind of make you feel special when you walk in, but also acknowledging this is a rustic area. You will see animals, and
Yeah,
that is a hard line to walk. I think even
yeah,
increasingly so with the expectations
agreed.
of, okay, people are building spaces to rent now that are brand new, very modern, no problems. You're not going to have any issues, with any of the utilities. And that's not
Yeah,
the case for us. So we do a lot of education in our marketing as well as in our emails to let people know, hey, you've got to be a little bit rugged. You might see a mouse, and that's terrifying for a lot of people. And we do our darndest to make sure that that doesn't happen to your stay, but it could, and that's just
yeah,
the nature of dealing with 100-year-old structures, in spite of our best intentions
yeah,
to work within the world we're in. But we also are in a wild space, and that's the nature of our local neighbors. They have their needs too. So we walk a fine
yeah,
line, and we really valued the people that have come to find us and love us for that. And we won't ever be able to be, the build to own or build to rent, kind of really modern, super sexy, flashy, modern everything. But we like our juxtaposition of being able to offer something for everyone.
yeah. It can be really tricky because when you're right in the middle of like high end and you're probably getting a lot of really good reviews, right? Which then emphasizes to folks high end, even just subconsciously, like good reviews, this is a great place to stay. It could just be you're finding the right people who it's a really good fit for, which is what we're all trying to do. But then you could have someone who like actually really wants rustic, so they're totally delighted, or someone who is expecting like a hotel without, and it's like, well, it's a cabin, there might be an ant or something, and you just don't know which one you're going to get, and trying to please everyone and manage those expectations for everyone, I feel like is a challenge that a lot of people listening to this face regularly. And with 3 cabins, we face it differently at each one of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. We thought for a minute when we bought Fresh Coast with the multitude of structures that we could make it kind of an Airbnb style approach. And that was a hard challenge because, to your point, that's a place where people most would expect to have someone on site full time for questions, for, hey, what do I do if this
Yeah,
happens? The door's sticking. How do I work with
yeah,
this? And we thought for a while that we could make that work, and we realized that we couldn't. We needed to have on-site support in order to provide that best experience. And I think what we found in that is people generally, if they see you're trying to help and you're doing everything in your power to do that, I think that goes a long way in making that
yeah,
experience better, even if it's not an ideal situation that they're going through. And I think we navigate that a lot. There's just things that we are out of our control. Weather, we get insane wind and power will go out, and we're trying to put in a generator, but we don't have that figured out yet. So here's our power out plan. And we want you to know we
yeah.
have this and we'll be around to talk to you you if this happens, and kind of go through what your options are, and where you can go to either, if you, make it options for people to have the freedom to do what they want to do, but also know that they're being taken care of in a way that
Yeah.
hopefully they wouldn't be if they were in just
Right.
a space where they were on their own.
That's right. And then there's the flip side, right? Where you're offering something, even like the gift bag, this constant attention to detail, like you are offering something different. I just stayed at an Airbnb this past week when I was traveling for work, right? And it was totally fine. We had everything that we needed for our work trip, but like nothing blew my mind. There were mixed temperature light bulbs in every room, which drove me absolutely batshit. But it was fine, right? Like it served all of our needs. I left him a 5-star review. He was very available. It was fine. I would say this is the majority of Airbnbs out there, though most people listening to this podcast are in this very niche space where we're really striving to go above and beyond. I think there is a challenge, especially when you do go above and beyond and you charge a little bit more for that. I think there's a flip side challenge in managing those expectations of like why the price point is higher, and you're going to get more than just a place to sleep that night. You are going to get an experience that's been created for you. How do you market that side of it? How do you manage expectations on that side to help people realize what you're truly offering them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant battle, right? Every day. We use the channels that we have, we show up on social media just to share and show more of what it's like, and the goods, oftentimes outweigh the bad, but it is a lot of expectation management. And we
Yeah.
also, like I said, a lot of people have they don't come here by accident, but there have been a lot of people here coming here for a
Mhm.
long period of time. We've had people mad at us for updating the cabins because they want them to stay the same. Literally had someone
Yeah.
complain
Fair.
about the shower that used to have duct tape in it that we removed and replaced with a different type of shower so that it didn't have duct tape to seal.
Lynn, that duct tape was nostalgic for them.
Exactly, yeah, so, I mean, that is an ongoing. I wish I knew the answer to that. I wish I had a better answer to how do we continually provide that, because everybody's expectations are different, and you never know
Right.
when you answer the phone or when you start messaging with someone on Instagram, you never know their expectation. I do feel like that's
Right.
given us more, interest in showing up on social and being in those areas
Yes.
instead of just, relying on Google reviews or other ways to fill our cabin. We do wanna try to tell a story and give people
Yeah.
our why, and that helps, I think, with getting people an understanding of, wow, they did buy this and they renovated it and they're doing their very best. And so I think that gives us a little bit more, just being willing to share that some of
Yeah.
that turmoil and some of that stress. And people, I think, take a little bit of a kinder attitude when they know you're not just a
Yes.
big corporation with limitless pockets, and you're really bootstrapping, trying to make the best thing work in a place that's a little bit harder than some to make great things
Yeah.
happen. And I love that we have that. We definitely have that in our
Yes.
audience. I 200% appreciate and have just enjoyed being able to connect with people that see a cabin, like one of the cabins on our property, and I just love the old logs, and I can almost smell, the cabin smell when you walk
Yes.
in, and I'm like, yeah, you can. I wish I could bottle that. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
you're a people. You looked at that picture
yeah.
and you saw what I see, right? And that in social media, that is the advantage. It gives you a touch point daily if you want it to share the why, to share the values, which I think slowly helps to shape people's expectations versus scrolling on an Airbnb platform and just comparing one cover photo with whatever that price is. I think that gets a lot trickier and it's hard to do that. I would say that, the tricky value rating, that's where any
Yeah.
4 stars on value we get, I almost guarantee that they came from Airbnb, which is totally fine, and I think it's fair. The way they phrase value is interesting too, but I think it's fair to feel like, "Wow, this was really a stretch for me." And so even a
Yeah.
4, I think for some people is good on that, but I just think it gets
Absolutely.
tricky.
Yeah, our team has
Social
studied
media
that
really.
one. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. The value rating on Airbnb, we looked at it as a group, I think a couple of years ago, and it's so interpretable, right? Like the
Yeah,
value to you versus the value to someone else, the value to someone who just, lost a family member and like needs a moment to get away is so
yes,
different from someone who's
yeah,
having a bachelorette party or, just creating a
yes.
different type of experience. And it's hard to impact all of those varieties of reasons.
Yeah, which I think is interesting that Verbo doesn't have value on theirs.
Mm.
I feel like they've realized that, like, this is a really tricky one. I'm actually surprised that Airbnb still does it, especially I always remember when I have to rate my host when I'm traveling, the way they phrase it is like 5 is like, "I got a great deal." And I'm like, Interesting, because a great deal insinuates to me, someone who's frugal, that like I got a discount or it's cheaper than I thought it should be, right? Which is like an interesting way to phrase that versus like this was worth every penny I spent on it. That's just
Mhm.
like a different way to say it. If you're dreaming about a cabin build, or are in the midst of a build, or you just bought a place and are getting ready to host for the very first time, regardless of where you are, sometimes you just need a little help along the way. Shared experiences from someone who's been there, advice from someone who's learned a lot of lessons the hard way. That's me. Or a cheerleader as you finish up. All of these reasons are exactly why I started offering cabin consultations to our Instagram followers and friends who could use some specific one-on-one help. I can't promise to solve all your problems, but I can promise to be transparent about our build costs and process, our organization and project management systems, our favorite and least favorite tools for renting, how we market, and how we found ourselves with almost 80,000 Instagram followers and 100% occupancy in our first year of hosting at Cozy Rock. So if that sounds like it might help you, feel free to visit us at staycozycabin.com or on Instagram at Cozy Rock Cabin and sign up for a time to chat there. Okay, so another thing that you described was the ritual of seasonality, which I really liked. Can you, for someone who is not familiar with this area, can you walk us through the seasons and the rituals of each on your spot of Lake Superior?
Absolutely. Yeah. The changes in our landscape are vast throughout the year. I mean, Michigan experiences all 4 seasons, and I feel like the Keweenaw Peninsula experiences 5. So the majority of Michigan gets a couple hundred inches of snow. The average snowfall in the Keweenaw is 300 inches. This year we're at 250. We're a little low. So we have just epic things that happen on our property. You know, from right now in the thick of it, where we see just inches pound compounding snow.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my watch again. And even trying to host sauna experience all winter, you can have such a vastly
Yeah.
different experience day to day on the shore. Drifts happen frequently, so it's the hardiness of being able to survive a deep winter. And we don't host in the winter at our cabins because of the deep winter. I should say that.
Okay.
But we love to give recommendations for people on where to go because we know some excellent hosts in the area that are able to do it. But with our property, it's a little challenging. With our spaces, they're a
Yeah.
little challenging. So we operate May to October. But winter is by far, in deep winter is I think our fifth season of. We have a lot of snow. That's fabulous to play in. That's gives us an awesome. Mount Bohemia Resort is as the crow flies less than 8 miles from us, and people love coming up and experiencing all there is to do in the winter, from snowmobiling and just snowshoeing and being able to see the lake. We actually have ice volcanoes happening out in front of the lake right now, where the waves hit so hard against the icy shore that it creates structure. Very dangerous, but very beautiful,
Yeah.
and it's an incredible scene on Lake Superior. And as that melts and the shoreline starts to trickle away, we just have this beautiful like heated rock conglomerate that warms up, the edges of Lake Superior, as most of the peninsula is a little still snow covered, and it's gorgeous. I have some of my best memories from a sunny, I think it was like a March day, just sitting down there having a beer with my husband, and we were relaxing on the shore where it was bare rock, but you were essentially sitting in an ice cavern and watching
Yeah.
everything, the sun flicker off the water and everything melting, and it was beautiful. And then from
Okay, this is
there,
what I'm more interested in. I'm
yeah,
interested in the human rituals that come with each season. So that's
very
one
good
of
call.
them. Is it like more isolating? Is it more community? Like those, I'm just curious about the actual culture that humans experience in the different seasons there.
Yeah, there's a great winter community culture up here, but it is not for everyone. The summer culture is very different from a human aspect than the winter culture. The winter people are much
Yeah.
more rugged and hardy, and you'll find people that'll
Yeah.
strap on their backcountry skis, they'll go skin up,
Yeah.
grass it, and they'll have just an amazing time experiencing that, getting beers after, stopping and having a bonfire. It is definitely much more of like a locals crew, I think, in the
Yeah.
winter, even though we get a huge tourism business during that time of year. Spring and fall end up being our slowest times, and they're also kind of our
Huh.
favorite times. There's no bugs. There's
Yeah.
always something to do as long as you've got the right clothing. Clothing can be a little bit
Yes.
of a
This is
challenge.
just like Maine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I think it really is similar to the East Coast. And summer, of
Yeah.
course, is everybody's favorite time. The lake lays down in July. And so paddleboarding on Lake Superior, even though you can't do it very often, when you can is just an unreal experience. We had our friend, we all went paddleboarding together. He wasn't very confident on his paddleboard and he had glasses, prescription glasses, of course,
Oh
and
no.
fell off. Like glasses went in, and usually that's like we're done and gone. But Lake Superior is so clear if you can hold the spot of where you are and you don't move around so much, which
You
just
can find
happened to
them.
be, yeah, the perfect like flat lake day. We found his glasses, were able to dive down and get him, and I was like, that is a miracle. What just happened to you?
But that's such a so one of our places is on a lake, and we did the same thing with sunglasses. That is such a lake day thing. You have
Yeah,
nowhere to be. It's not like, "Oh, I have to get to this meeting." It's like, "We have nowhere to be. Let's spend the next 45 minutes with our masks on diving for your sunglasses." Because what else like, it's actually fun to do that. I feel like that's the summer lake life. On
absolutely.
the flip side, the winter, I love your description because it sounds just like Maine. We were up at Kingfield, and we were driving home, and it was negative 12 degrees when we got in the car, and I stopped to get gas, and I went in to get coffee, and there were 3 older men with, like, thick beards, like, thick Maine accents, and they were just standing around chatting about the weather, and then another one walked in, and all 4 of them are comparing what their thermometers said that morning and how cold it got, and to me, it was just such a winter ritual of like, we're tough and hardy and like, we're here in the thick of winter. Let's talk about how cold it is and how tough we are. And I just went back to the car and I was like, Sean, I'm so sorry you missed that. That was such a Maine winter thing to see, you know?
Yeah.
And it sounds very similar there, though, like, it pairs down to just the locals for the most part. It has a different feel to it.
It does. Yeah, and those are our favorite times. I'm actually really glad we don't have to worry about being so on our toes for hospitality season
Yes.
in the winter because we get a break. I am so grateful for that because I know a lot of other hosts are hosting year round and it feels probably like an endless cycle of not being able
And we hate
to
winter.
Yeah, winter is so hard to create a good experience. That's one reason where we just
So
decided it wouldn't work for us. I mean, someone coming from Chicago and expecting to be able to get into their cabin the moment they arrive, if we didn't have, 8
right.
inches of snow that came down on the way and how to get
It's
there and
so
make sure
hard.
that they can do that, it's just yeah, it's not worth trying to manage that experience and expectation for us.
No, I
But
hear
it's
you.
our favorite time of the year to be around
That's the
and
thing. That's why I'm torn because it is my favorite time of the year to be at the cabin, and it's my least favorite time of the year to be
so
hosting.
fair.
It's just
Yes.
a lot of logistics, but once you're there and if you are stuck in a snowstorm, it's, like, mildly inconvenient, but, like, beautiful and magical in the cabin, right? So it's, like, hard to,
Absolutely.
like again, managing expectations. It's hard to manage those expectations for someone booking in, August where it's nice out. They're just not even thinking about that.
Yeah, we felt so
In
bad. It was,
summer.
I think, 2 winters ago, Christmas, we had this just insane Christmas storm, and we had to call our families and be like, "Sorry, guys, we're stuck. We It's dangerous for us to leave. We can't
Yeah.
we can't come to Christmas." Like, and I felt really bad, but I was also like, "This is incredible."
This is kind of
Yeah,
nice.
we're just gonna go
Yeah.
snowshoe and have hot cocoa, and it's gonna be great and not have
Yeah.
anywhere to be.
And it totally depends where it is, because in Maine, we actually get almost no complaints about the like, even if there's a snowstorm, people show up on time
Yeah.
and they leave the next day, and I'm like, "I'm so sorry, the plow hasn't been there yet," and they're like, "Oh, we have a four-wheel drive vehicle, like, 6 inches of snow isn't gonna stop us." But in Boone, the mountains of North Carolina, it takes an inch before we get complaints, and so many bookings are like, we wanna make sure that we see snow. Is February okay?" And I'm like, "I cannot promise snow." And so either they might be disappointed without snow or they get it and in their two-wheel drive vehicle, they can't get to the cabin. And it just feels in North Carolina, it feels impossible to please anyone in winter. So at least up north, it's like people generally know what you expect from winter,
Yeah, I love the
which is
moments
really
when you
nice.
get the guests that just lean in and, yeah, "Oh, no big deal. Oh, by the way, the doorknob fell off. I just grabbed a screwdriver and fixed it." And we're just like, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing. Like, thank you."
Yeah,
And other
I love
people that
that.
are like, "Yeah, I didn't see the northern lights. I want my money back." And I'm like, "Okay,
Yes.
we're gonna talk later."
It's so tricky. It's so
Yeah.
tricky. Okay. I want to ask one more question. We're going to move into digital marketing because you have an extensive experience in that. And I feel like some of that might be helpful. But I do want to like dig in a little bit because you clearly are an entrepreneur, right? Like I feel like there's different folks. There's some folks who have a cabin and host it. And I love that. And then there's folks who are like, "Oh, I really like this. How do I do more of this? Like, how do I build a business out of this?" I would say that I fall more in the second category, so I deeply relate to this. But my family makes fun of me because I also like generally don't like capitalism just because I worry that it's driving us to prioritize money over nature and I worry about our forests and I just worry about losing all of our trees. And yet this tension, like my family likes to play Monopoly, and I always am like, "No, I don't believe in it. It should be like a different game that teaches us to cooperate and do what's best for everyone." And then they look at me and they're like, "But you're the biggest capitalist in the family." And they're not wrong. So this tension is really hard for me, and I'm curious how you navigate that in such a heart you clearly put your heart behind all that you're doing and still have to think about things like maximizing profits and like how do I make this sustainable? How do you navigate that tension?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really it gets back to placemaking, right? Like there are things here, and I guess we've been fortunate in the way that we've been able to tackle projects. Everything that we've done has been a remodel or a renovation. We have not chosen, well, with the exception of the Superior Sauna. Everything has been on a piece of property that has already had a structure on it, and we're
Mm,
doing minimal impact to the footprint that's been created, but making it better. And that's where I think a lot of
yeah.
our drive comes from, and how we maybe justify the pull between, hey, this is capitalism, but I also want really cool places for people to hang out. And I want my
Right.
friends to feel like they can go down and sit on the lawn and watch the water and listen to music and sit next to a fire, or be able to experience a sauna and they don't have one.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like being able to provide a service. And I think, I mean, we're probably not the best business owners. We are not trying to maximize capital at we're bootstrapping, we're putting everything back into our properties in order
Yeah.
to make a better place. And I
Yeah.
think that all comes back to, right, our Venn diagram of like, we want you to feel the way that a certain way when you walk into any of our
Yeah.
spaces. We want you to feel excitement when you walk into the new lounge bar and you see the huge mural of a walleye drinking a beer on the wall. And we want you
Yeah.
to also like feel like you can host your wedding or your baby shower upstairs, and
Yeah.
everything's calm and beautiful and perfect, and you've got this great view of the
Yeah.
canal. And it's I think for us that we try not to make decisions strictly based on capitalistic choices, and we've strategically chosen the projects that we think are important and have worked closely now, and more so than ever, after kind of learning our way in cabin world, coming down to our city, being welcomed by a community that wants like positive things to do, like positive change in their community, has been such a exhilarating shift,
Yeah.
and because you feel like up at Fresh Coast, it's beautiful. It's my favorite place to go to work. I say, even if it's a crappy, shitty day, this is still the place I would rather show up and wash windows
Yes.
than sit at my laptop and,
Yes.
type away for 9 hours. But we did that all on our own, or, with help of building a
Yeah.
team and making that happen up there, but pretty isolated. Coming into the
Yeah.
city, we've now got access to grants. We've got all of this like city support that we've never felt before. And I
Yeah.
think that has really been a huge driver and assistance in making us feel more confident in the next steps, capitalistic or not. We want to provide spaces for people to enjoy, jobs for people to have in our community that they wouldn't have if we weren't there doing what we were
Yeah.
doing, and experiences in the same way. So
Yeah.
I think I push back on that by saying it's not just, capitalism and making money. It's we're providing experiences not just for people that come, but our locals as well as our employees. We've got a
Yeah.
team now that we
Right.
provide for, and we make sure that they've got food on the table and that
Right.
they can go on vacation and do things. And I
Right.
think that's where that rubber hits the road for me. It's like, we know we don't want to
Yeah.
grow forever. We aren't in the, we are serial entrepreneurs. So you can't deny it. But I think we don't see this, desire to keep doing this and keep growing and getting bigger. We've been really strategic and intentional about the projects we've chosen for that reason, to try to
Yeah.
have a really, a specific impact
Yes.
that's maybe less tied to the profit and loss statement.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is what I actually think is a huge strength of capitalism is that it has allowed this Airbnb market to emerge where it's becoming more saturated, which means that it's pushing each of us to do it better, figure out what our own why is, do it exceptionally well so that you can then rise to the top, which then drives all of it to be better, right? So like this is what it's just tricky for me. So I love hearing other people's perspectives of like how you make those decisions. I love the idea though of renovating is like pouring life back into something that's already there. It actually has like very little impact on the environment or the town, and continues to give life to spaces that have a lot of history to them.
Yeah, certainly a lot of impact in lots of different ways, right? But otherwise, they would just sit there degrading. And if someone's
That's
not going to
right.
come and make them better, then they're just going to be blight. So it's, yeah, it's a double edged sword. It's super
I
tricky.
know. It's
Yeah.
so tricky, and as someone who has also done a new build, because I did a renovation,
Yes.
and it
Yeah.
was just, like, years of replacing things one at a time, and I was like, "Oh my god, can I please start from scratch?" So, like, no
Mhm.
judgment. I have grappled with all of this amidst my own choices. It's just something that I think about a lot.
We still wanna, like, you having to remodel for so long and making those
Right.
choices that with the toilet having to be 6 inches off because of where this center was, that I'll never be able to not look at this beautiful bathroom and not see the toilet misaligned. It'll drive you nuts,
Yes.
but it's also, yeah, it's an honor to be able to go through the journey, and if we do get the chance to build our own place someday, which I really do hope we will, we still wanna be
Yeah.
intentional about it and, yeah,
That's right.
conscientious of our area and of, the impact that we leave on the land.
Yeah. So you have a rich history in digital marketing. So you spent, I believe, 20 years in digital marketing, running digital ad campaigns. So tell us a little bit about that history, and then I'd love to ask some questions that might help those listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So I built my high school's website in 1999, and it was a
Wow.
super unsexy, boxy black. We used it. It was very modern at the time. It was like when before black was cool. But started in this space of getting familiar with digital and the world that we live in, and also trying to combine that. I went to school for not marketing at the time, because our I went to an engineering university in our town here, Michigan Tech, which is awesome. But most people go here to be an engineer, and I knew from the day that I stepped foot on campus that I was not cut out for that. But luckily, my
Uh-huh.
husband was. So
Is that where
went
you met him?
for. Yes, yeah. We actually met. I bartended at the local brewery, and he was a graduate
Love it.
student trying to get through graduate school, and so it was a perfect match from
Yeah.
from that moment.
Yeah.
But went to school, found my way into marketing via communication and kind of visual communication and art, and the emerging science of marketing. And at that time, it wasn't what we know today as digital at all. I
Right.
didn't go to a class on anything about AI or about social media or even about SEO or the very basics. It was very much just getting to know and understand how digital media was working, and starting
Yeah.
with websites. I really started after graduating working on different websites, first for a local agency, then for the university that I graduated from, and
Okay.
followed that path down and up, I guess, up, climbing the corporate ladder, right? That's where my husband and I both graduated from
Mm.
college, tried to figure out how to make careers work locally, but couldn't. We just didn't have enough of an opportunity to continue to grow in the careers that we had just spent so much time, money, and energy earning. And so we ended up moving out west. We were in Oregon for a year, and then my husband ended up landing a position in Seattle. And so we were out there for about 5 years, and I was able to find my footing in digital marketing, working for another university first, and then at a global digital marketing agency, and then really got into media, ad platforms, how we could make multi-million dollar ad campaigns impactful. Worked with some amazing people, smart creatives, just incredible clients and projects. And it was
Mhm.
for all intents and purposes, it was like you made it, right? I
Yeah.
was a director in the media department. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we were in Seattle. We were far from home. My
Yeah.
husband had an opportunity to move back and start a job with his friends, and you don't get that opportunity every so often. They had funding. It was a
Mm.
startup. It was risky, but we were like, all right, if worst comes to worst, we can just, go back to the Pacific Northwest. And that's kind of what drove us back to our community where we went to school. And that's where we're going to be. We are here now. And that's what led to the cabins and finding all these special connections to the place that we kind of had to leave to respect as
Yeah.
much as we do now. It was really good that we got the chance to explore and learn more about the rest of the world and the ways we travel. We love to travel,
Yeah.
but being able to experience and live in the Pacific Northwest for a while gave us a lot of inspiration, I think, for
Yeah.
what has come through our
I
projects.
think that's very common. I think that happens in Maine a lot too. People, like, go to college either out of state or go to college and then get jobs out of state and then end up coming back when which I think is actually really healthy to, like, get to
Absolutely,
see other
yeah,
places. Then you're making an educated decision about where you want to be versus just the
exactly.
place that you always were and letting inertia guide that. I don't think that's uncommon. When
We
you
call
think
it the
about
boomerang effect now. There's, like, so many
Yeah.
couples that we knew either tangentially in college or not that ended up coming back, and especially we came back before COVID, but once COVID happened and just continued to fuel the fire, and our area finds its people. I mean, it's so close to outdoor activities, it's got such great trails, and if you come here and you like it and you can survive hard winters and you don't mind bug season every so often, or can dress for the weather, it
Yeah.
really attracts its own. And once people come, they
Yeah.
realize what a gem it is.
Yeah. It's so interesting whenever I'm experiencing winter in North Carolina, I'm always freezing because I just don't I'm thinking like a North Carolinian where one day it's 70 and one day it's 30. But when I'm in Maine, I never get cold because I'm like dressed. I know exactly what I should have and the layers I should wear. Wearing the right clothes makes it so much less
So
intimidating.
true.
How much have you used your work in digital marketing and marketing the cabins? Like how much of that was just like a different space, different scale of business, and how much of that were you able to transition to the marketing in this space?
Yeah, from the start of like the, website world, and then moving into the, large multi-million dollar media budget world is, yeah, to your point,
Yeah.
huge expanse. And it's so different when
Yeah.
you're approaching your own brand and your own story, right? And marketing that to a smaller audience. Because obviously, I mean, I used to work with Microsoft and AT&T and Pella Windows, and we don't have the budgets or the impact that they could do. So you
Yeah.
have to get really scrappy with what you know, but that's also really awesome because you can scale ad campaigns. You can start
Yeah.
on when I ended officially in the media side of that agency. You can spend $10 a month on media. It might not be the most impactful. It might not get you the most, but you can learn some things. And so there's
Yeah.
lots of little elements that we've been able to bring in and test through targeted ad campaigns, through the learning of creating our journeys on our website, as well as our email campaigns. And that's kind of all evolved and grown into a way that I think has been largely impacted by my marketing career.
Yeah. If you had advice for anyone listening to this, because I would guess the majority of people listening to this are probably on social media, are probably they're on Airbnb, Verbo, whatever those platforms are, and that's about it. And they have maybe a website. Not everyone, but some people have a website. Where should they start if they wanted to play around with, okay, I've done social here, I feel like I'm plateauing with these things. What would
Yeah.
be if they wanted to like dip their toe into paid advertising, where would you recommend that they start?
Yeah, for paid, it's interesting. If you don't have a website, I don't know that I would recommend doing anything with paid yet. I think you've got to build
Okay,
your
step
house
one, get
first.
a website.
Think about your cabin, right? You've got to like build that baby first and then be,
Yeah.
really proud of it before you're willing to pay money to drive traffic to it. And that's, you
Yeah.
can do some things, you can boost posts and drive to Airbnb. You can like make those things happen. But in my world, or my philosophy is, if you're not driving someone to an experience you've created that's super intentional from a cabin perspective, I'm not going to do the same thing to you digitally, right? Because I want everything to be
Yeah.
reflected and you're being taken care of from the moment you click off an ad on Google or on Instagram into a website that I've designed that's made for your brain to come and enjoy.
Oh, this is good. That
Yeah,
your website is actually like their first experience with what it feels like to stay with you. It is actually placemaking in
yes.
a digital format.
I have spent more money remodeling my website than I have some of the cabins. It's embarrassing, like in that way, but I also want it to be so impactful. I want people to have like itineraries that they're so excited about. They're like, yeah, I want the undercover foodie guide to the Keweenaw. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
How do I find that hole in the wall dive bar?
Yeah.
And I mean, that extends to all of the activities. We actually wrote a book. I don't know if I told you that. I don't even know if I have a copy of it here. We wrote a book because people, the second they got to the cabins, would say, what do I do? Where do I go? And everyone has a different, desire. Some people want history.
Yeah.
Some people want really technical hikes. Some people want to go
Yeah.
kayak in the middle of Lake Superior. And trying to incorporate all of that into a 10-minute conversation was exhausting, even though,
So wait,
we
is this
loved
like
it.
a choose your own adventure book?
Yes, it's a guidebook. Yeah, we wrote a book. We call it Keweenaw Land, with the kind of playing into the idea of, yeah, your carnival, right? You're in the Keweenaw, but this is your land to enjoy, and it's all
Yeah.
natural, explorations. It's some of our favorite hikes, and we provide tips and recommendations for the time of day or time of year. What to bring. It's very much a guidebook. It's in every one of our cabins. We sell it on our website, so it's another way that people kind of get a perspective of who we are and what we're doing and our approach. And we treat our website the same way. A lot of the elements that go into that are designed to help people plan their trip. Because at the end of the day, I'm getting paid when you put your head in my bed, which is, the goal. But I want you to have the best experience you've ever had. I want this to be your 10 out of 10
Yeah.
vacation and the one that you want to bring people back to. And that is one thing that's been really great about our area. It does attract repeat visitors. And once you find it,
Yeah.
you found something special and you realize you need more time to explore it. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, the biggest mistake of people traveling to us for the first time is they only come for a night or two.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
just like, it's not going to be long enough. But I'm
No,
going to,
no.
you
We
can
know
come
that
back.
this. You'll
We'll
figure it
have
out.
you back.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm not done geeking out about the marketing stuff because what I can't stop thinking about is that I always talk about the sales funnel and I do marketing, video marketing full time. And so we always talk about the sales funnel. And in the cabin world, the one spot on the sales funnel that I tend to get stuck is the try. So you find, follow, and then try, buy, repeat, and refer, right? But the try for a cabin stay, I've always thought about our one night stays as our version of try, or even our reels as a version of try. Like we're trying our best to give you a simulated experience without actually investing the money in a full scale stay. But what I'm hearing from you is that my website could actually be a version of try that I am not taking advantage of.
Yeah, I love that for, because you spend so much time on these channels, and if you're not housing your videos on your website, on YouTube, leveraging that content around the experience that you're creating, it's a huge opportunity. Think about try in the world of marketing, right? Metrics that we care about, engaged time on the page, on the site, how
Yeah.
much time are you spending
Yeah.
looking at our site? And I know there's other resources that you can always look to, especially in everybody's local community. There's others trying to advocate and support. We have a Visit Keweenaw website. We link to them heavily. They do a good job of highlighting things too, but we can offer a different type of try, right? And it
Yeah.
can be very specific to our location or to our type of property, the trail across the street that you only get to go on if you stay with us, and we can give people a
Yeah.
way to fall down the gosh, I can't wait to do this rabbit hole. And we
Yeah.
also, for that, in what we were talking about earlier, how do we manage those expectations? Every opportunity gives us a chance to say, hey, bring bug spray. If you've got a bear bell, you might want that for walking in the woods.
Yeah.
These are little notes that give people a sense of what they're getting into. So if they're not familiar with the wilderness, they at least know to ask more questions,
Yeah.
rather than just coming and expecting to have an awesome experience without wildlife.
Yeah, yeah. And it makes them feel like they're in safe hands. It makes them really trust and look to you as the expert in this situation, which I think your book does, your social media presence does. And that already going back to what we talked about before makes this feel like a different Airbnb experience. This is not your traditional like check in, check out, maybe get annoyed by the light bulb situation. This is a like experience that you're going to be talking about 5 years from now, probably planning your next trip as soon as you leave.
Yes, yeah, that
Yeah.
is always
Okay.
our goal. Yeah, you nailed it, and I think we've all had those experiences where we walk into places and we're like, "Those were interesting choices they made."
Yeah.
But we all know that there's others out there, and I hate to hear bad stories on Airbnb, but it also that's what drove us to invest so much in our website and in our direct booking system. I will say this is like I think it's really bad of me to say this. You might cut me off, but I am not a superhost right now because I had to cancel a stay based on like inappropriate expectations that were being managed, and so it kills me. I've been a superhost for so many years, and my cancellation rate now has like barred me from superhost status. And I try
Only
not
for
to
like a
get
quarter of a year, hopefully.
quarter of a
I had that
year.
happen once years ago.
Yeah, but still, like, it's still killing me, and
It's
the
still frustrating,
benefit,
yeah.
though, what I can hang my hat on is over 80% of our bookings come direct, and I look at
That's so
Airbnb
impressive.
more as a marketing platform than an actual tool to get people to book, and if they look around, they'll see quickly that they can do better on our website and that we're a branded entity even within the confines of Airbnb, and so that's made a huge difference for us in that
Okay, wait, I have
in
questions
creating
about
that.
this.
Go ahead.
I just introduced direct booking in September, and we're at, like, 5% direct booking. I
Yeah.
cannot get people to book direct, and there's 2 parts to this, and I'm telling you this only because 'cause I'm hoping you can tell me what I'm doing wrong. Part of it is the direct booking platform we chose, it feels like the credit card processing fees are so high that, like, I can't actually even offer that much of a discount because their fees are adding up to basically what Airbnb's were. So it
Yeah.
doesn't save us money, it's not saving them money. So if it's, like, basically the same price, why not just
What do you
book
do?
via Airbnb? But we do offer a discount code for repeat guests, and I haven't had, I don't think, a single person use that yet. What am I doing wrong, Lynn?
Ooh, it's tough. I mean, there's lots in there, right? The tool selection is really important, and it is a very scary world of direct booking. We've now tried 2 platforms in addition to the one that we're on, where I was pretty headstrong that we were moving to it because it had a better user experience, because we were gonna be able to offer a better, check-in, check-out, validation
Yeah.
experience, and I was really jazzed about it, but the fees are prohibitive, and I have found that to
So
be
which ones
huge.
have you used?
So
Talk
we
details.
use a plugin that's on a WordPress, which is our website platform. And so we use a plugin called HBook, and we've used it 4 years. It cost me $50 at the very beginning when we set it up, and we have used it. And
That
now
was
we have
it?
stripe fees. Yeah, that's the one time. Now every other project or like package that I've looked at is, monthly fees, $100 to $400 a month if you want to
I
offer
pay 150 a month for 3
Absolutely.
properties.
Yeah, and I mean, I've gone down the rabbit hole twice with onboarding with new projects to try to move our reservation booking system, and I've just never been able to justify it, and
So
I'm
who did you find that you didn't like before you
um,
did this budget?
we did 2. The most recent one was I wanted to hook into Akia, which had the text portal, but you had to do their specific oh my gosh. So Muse was one that we looked at pretty heavily, and there's the counterpart to Muse, Cloudbeds. Cloudbeds is one, and then the
Never
other
even
one that
heard
we
of these
looked at
2.
yeah, and that's the scary part. There's so many. It is a wide
I
world
know.
of tech platforms that you can spend so much time and energy not worrying about your business and just trying to figure out this booking system.
That's how I
Um,
felt.
but the choices you make have significant impacts. For instance, some of them will allow you to show up in Google hotel search, like as a vacation rental now. And that was one thing that I was really excited about because a lot of people for our area look geographically for where they're going to stay. And you go right to the top and you're on the water. So we've got a huge benefit to that. And people will just click around. And so us appearing in Google hotel search was a huge part of something that I think would make a lot of sense for our business. But if you don't, essentially get in bed with the right tech player, you're not going to be able to get access to that. So, yeah, we looked at that one, and there was one other one. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of people use it in our area, and that's how you kind of figure out what people are doing. We looked at hotels, we're trying to figure out what they were doing,
Yeah.
and then made the decision to try to do onboarding calls, and just ended up sticking with what we had the whole time.
Yeah. If it's working, I mean,
Yeah,
man, and 80%.
yeah, but to your point, like, you've gotta make the case to, be able to offer that direct booking discount, and if that's not there because of the provider you have, what do you do? So that
Right.
that is a tough one. Like, tool selection is so critical to how that works, for
Right.
the owner, for you to be able to benefit from
Right.
that. But
Right.
other ways, I mean, I think you're right on in terms of trying to incentivize people to come back, giving them that discount, and it doesn't happen right away, right? I think we definitely have people that take a year or 2 off but we also have
Yeah.
people that book right away every year that want their dates. They're so focused on
Yep.
their week that they
Yep.
come. So we have that benefit as well and try to make sure that they're rewarded for their loyalty at the same
Yep.
time because it's so much easier to get a repeat guest than it is to get a
Yes,
new guest and have them have an epic experience, which we want to
that's
guarantee
right.
but never can.
Right. Repeat guests are the best guests. It's just everything about them. Like it, I love. If we could have all repeat guests, that would be my dream. Not that I do appreciate. We have so many guests who come for special occasions, and it's their
Yeah.
first time, and they're getting engaged or whatever. And I love those too. But repeat guests, where they just know exactly what they're getting into, they're
Mhm.
looking forward to it. The only message you get is like, "Oh my gosh, it's so nice to be back," and then that's it. Except for like pictures at the end of it. Yes, repeat guests are the best. Lynn, this was great. Thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day to chat with me.
Absolutely. This was so fun. And thank you for continuing to do what you do and just showing up and sharing everything so that people can get a better understanding of what they're getting into, but also see behind the scenes, right? They get to understand a little bit. Everything's not all roses, but if you
Yeah.
lean in and you continue to do good work, hopefully it comes back to you in the world. And I've just enjoyed following Cozy Rock Cabin for a really long time and so glad that you took on this podcast. I know it's no small feat. So hats off to you on making it happen.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you liked what you heard, feel free to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or share some of your favorite parts over on Apple Podcast. If you have feedback or suggestions for the future, you can also find me on Instagram at Cozy Rock Cabin. Looking forward to next week.